Keto and crime, keto and crime. We uncover the grime on keto and crime. Keto and crime, keto and crime. Now is the time for keto and crime.
Hey everyone, Tracy here from Keto and Crime. Thank you so much to every single one of my patrons and channel members. You make this possible. And you're one of the reasons I do this. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And if I haven't said it before, thank you. I'll sing it. Thank you. Thank you for hanging in there with me and letting me geek out, not making fun of me like a lot of other people do, because I like weird stuff about crime and dark history. Thanks, everyone. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Keto and Crime. Today, I've got a little video for you that I wasn't going to do a video. I'll be perfectly honest. I wasn't going to do a video. I was just going to, take the rest of the week because I'm going to be out of town and then get back to it next week when I'm back in town. But I saw something that just really, I don't know, peeved me off a little bit, and you guys know how I am when I get peeved off. I saw this ad campaign, picture, tweet, whatever you want to call it, about from Abercrombie and Fitch. Now, Abercrombie and Fitch is a well-known clothing brand that I used to admire when I used to walk in the mall as a teenager and young 20-something. It was the type of clothes I always wanted to wear but never could because I couldn't fit into it. Quite honestly, I was a fat kid. I was a fat teenager, with the exception of the military training I did. I was fat for the majority of my life. Still battle it. I've lost 80 pounds. I still have a long way to go. But I always admired Abercrombie and Fitch's clothes. I mean, the ads, you remember the old ads from the 80s and 90s? They were, sleek, young, hot people, and that's what I aspired for. And there was a point in life where I did get healthy and lose weight and was able to get into the largest size that Abercrombie and Fitch offered for women. I believe at the time it was a 10. I was able to squeeze my butt into that, and I was able to wear it for a season until I gained my weight back. But so I was so proud. That was like an achievement. And I also remember about, anyway, we'll get back into that. But Abercrombie and Fitch, this not high fashion, but mall fashion, well-known brand, tweeted an ad campaign. They said it wasn't an ad, it was just a picture, but of a morbidly obese model and some clothes. Now I'm going to put that picture here. Now, first of all, let's just ignore the fact that obesity is very unhealthy. It's not the standard. It's not the way we want our country to go, though it seems to be going there more and more often. But let's just look at the clothes on this woman. Again, I'll pop it here. They're just not attractive. When I look at clothes, I want to see how it would fit on the majority of the population. I want to admire the clothes. Those shorts are too small. The shirt is most definitely too small, and there's a big old gap of skin. It doesn't even look comfortable. It's definitely not attractive. The clothes are not attractive on her, regardless of whether or not she's an attractive woman. I think she's a very attractive woman in the face and probably has a great personality and would probably be somebody I would hang out with. But those clothes are not flattering to her. If you're going to use an obese model, Abercrombie and Fitch, fit her. Fit her. To me, that is just ridiculousness. Fit it to her body. Make sure it at least covers most of her body. I mean, I understand there's a whole movement out there where you can just let it all hang out. I'm from a different generation. I don't want to see that. I don't even want to see that on me. I don't even like seeing that in the mirror on me. So just whatever. But anyway, I saw this and it got me to wonder how this brand, when just 10 years ago, the CEO got himself into a spot of trouble where he basically said, I don't care, fat people. Basically, this is what he said. I don't care if fat people wear my clothes or not. He basically took a stand. I am not going to do plus size fashion. And he got a lot of hate for that. And now, 10 years later, this is what we have. I mean, some people see this as progress. I see it as progression and regression all wrapped up into a bow. Yes, I'm glad that clothing manufacturers, in the effort to make a profit, realize that 40% of the American population is now overweight and obese, and then that's a market they haven't tapped into. They might want to tap into it just for profit's sake. And I'm glad that more fashionable clothes are available for us larger people, because in the past they haven't been. I mean, nothing you bought was very flattering. So I'm happy for that. But so that is progression. But where I see the regression coming in is the fact that it's promoted. Okay, you can't just say, okay, we now offer sizes 0 to 22, which female clothing sizes. And then, we now offer, a 28 waist up to a 40 or 50 something inch waist for men. You could just say that. You could just say that, and people would know that you could go to Abercrombie and Fitch and buy clothes that are a little more fashionable that might fit you. But why? Why, along with everything that 𝗧𝗏𝗽𝗁 has done and all these fat activists have done, would you promote it like that? And it's not even flattering. And so the whole thing is that they got a lot of repercussion and they pulled it. They pulled it because I guess there's still some sliver of sanity out there. But I have nothing against that young lady. I have nothing against Abercrombie and Fitch. And I admire them for wanting to fit more people in the population. That's a great thing. But we're still promoting two things. We're promoting obesity as okay. It's not okay. It's a very unhealthy lifestyle. It's a very unhealthy condition. It is the precursor to a myriad of ailments, from heart disease to cancer to diabetes. And for those of us, that just lived through this pandemic, it was one of the major comorbidities that led to people dying. With all the talk about vaccines and you should vaccinate and you should be safe, we also aren't even addressing that maybe we should get our bodies healthier. I saw stats that literally said that obese people were 117% more likely to end up hospitalized with COVID than those of normal weight. And they were something like 60% more likely to end up in intensive care and 60% more likely to die. So why aren't we talking about that? Why, with all the press for vaccines, aren't we talking about the comorbidities that go along with that? And being obese is one of the major ones. Okay, so two problems there. First of all, you're promoting it as a healthy, okay lifestyle, which it's not. And two, you literally made that young lady look crappy because the clothes did not fit her. If you're going to make fashion for overweight people, make it fit, make it flattering. There's a way to do that. You might go talk to your, over at the Limited that owns Lane Bryant. You might want to talk to them or people over at Torrid about fitting a fat body. Just saying, Abercrombie. So those are my two main arguments. But where did all this come from? Where did this whole movement about it's okay to be fat, health at every size, I've heard it all, where did that come from? Well, that's what we're going to talk about, the fat acceptance movement. The history of the fat acceptance movement, or as it's sometimes attached to the body positivity movement, which I think is a travesty, because originally the body positivity movement was to pump up or hold up people that had malformities they could not help. And by and large, obesity is a correctable condition. I'm a prime example of that. You know, people that were burn victims, that lost a limb, that were born with other ailments that made their bodies not of the norm, that is, 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, a relatively clear skin. Think that. That was what the body positivity movement was originally for, but we have this now fat acceptance movement that has glomped onto that and kind of co-opted it for themselves, and I think it is a tragedy. But the modern iteration of fat acceptance can be traced all the way back to 1967 in the heart of first or possibly second wave feminism, depends on what school you look at, but I still think that was more attached to first wave feminism. Back in 1967, when 500 overweight people met at New York Central Park to protest against anti-fat bias. Now, just like with the gay rights movement or LGBT plus premium pack movement, just like with first wave feminism, just like even with this, there was a need for that, because lots of times, like for myself, LGBTQIA, it was criminal in a lot of ways. You could be arrested. You could definitely be discriminated against in a lot of different ways. The same with feminism. We didn't have the right to vote for a huge portion of our history. Women could be discriminated against in a lot of different ways. Sexual crimes were not taken into great credo in a lot of ways. Women were kind of relegated to either the home or certain careers. So there was a need. And just like this, there was a need originally for this. Because, first of all, fat people could be called any number of things. Walking down the street, as a young 20-something, I had awful things yelled at me on the street in San Francisco when I lived there right after college. So there was a need for it at one time. So I understand this, but it kind of glomped onto that for the first wave feminist movement and has grown from there. But a sociologist by the name of Charlotte Cooper has argued that there's 4 waves of fat activism, just like there is 4 waves of feminism, depending on what you look at. And so now we're going to talk about the first few waves of fat activism. So that initial movement in 1967, spearheaded by Lou Lauterbach, who wrote an article in the Saturday Evening Post called "More People Should Be Fat." He was responding to blatant discrimination against his wife, from verbal to certain jobs to being able to find clothes that were decent, that sort of thing. So that essentially is the premise of the first wave of fat acceptance. It was needed because, yes, as an overweight person, you can't do every job. You have certain limitations. So I may not be hired as a construction worker that can climb up the side of a building that's being constructed, but I could probably answer your telephone in your front office. So that's the kind of things I'm talking about, that we should have more or less the same opportunities as other people, and perhaps stigmatize the very blatant name-calling cruelty that was inhibited at the time. So I understand there was a need for that. It was also at this time that the National Association to Advance Fat Acceptance, or NAFA, was founded, and a feminist group, which they were also fat, and I don't mean that ironically, called the Fat Underground, were formed in 1972, and these were people that basically went out, they did protests, they glomped on to the feminist movement, which, that's fine, they were women. And they were the ones that kind of started going beyond what I call first wave fat acceptance, whereas, okay, we have people, a certain percentage of the population is overweight, and they should be not stigmatized and not discriminated against. That's where first wave fat acceptance ended. And I am all for that, just like I'm all for first wave feminism and first wave, gay rights, LGBTQIA rights. I'm all for that. But then it started to become something else. And when the second wave hit in the 1990s, it began to go from okay, we just want to not be cruel to people and give them roughly the same opportunities as everybody else that they are capable of, i.e., my whole climbing the side of a building kind of, you know, example. And it began to creep into things like medical research, how perhaps if we destigmatize medical research from saying that obesity is a marker for all kinds of other ailments, that if we destigmatize it that way, that some of this discrimination will naturally fade away. And that's where it became kind of okay to now challenge the medical models, such as the BMI model. And there are problems with the BMI model. Absolutely, it doesn't take into account muscle mass or anything like that. Absolutely, there are problems with it, but it's still the best that we have. And so this is where we start seeing it cramp into, you know, medical science, which is established science. And then you have the third wave and fourth wave, which included a whole lot of other things. They tried to tie being obese to race, saying that certain races were more inclined to be overweight, which I think is racist in itself. And then to tie it to things like class, you know, only poor people are fat, sexuality, and it just kind of started creating obesity as not a changeable issue, that you were predestined to be fat because you were poor, a person of color, get whatever else you want to throw in there that is the reason you're fat. It has nothing to do with calories in, calories out. That's where we are seeing it headed today. And that's where I have a problem with it. I end my acceptance of fat acceptance at first wave, and we have to accept the fact that, yes, no one should be discriminated against, but there are factors that why it should not become the norm or an accepted part of the norm. We're obesing ourselves out of a decent military. We're obesing ourselves out of health. We are obesing ourselves out of hope. And that's why I'm so against this current iteration. We're also dwarfing movements by people that actually need body positivity, i.e., people that have things that cannot be helped, for people that can be helped. You also have discrimination against men in this movement. The vast majority of this, because it's now tied so much to feminism, are female, and you have to love me because even though I'm fat, but I don't want to love a fat man. You know, the muscular man over here has to love me or he's fat phobic, but I don't want to love an obese man. So you get that. It's kind of one-sided. And then there is, again, this progression to tie it to things that can't be helped: race, certain amount religion, social class. A lot of those things can be helped with the exception of race. You can change your religion. You can change your social status, but you cannot change your race. So that's, you know, more enlarged, trying to tie it to things that people think can't be changed. And then now it's becoming even more infiltrated into the medical community, where you have now medical professionals coming out saying that, you know, obesity is not tied to these comorbidities. They're more activists than doctors. Don't ever believe any doctor that tells you that obesity is not a marker for a myriad of other ailments. And you now have literally discrimination based on the fact that you're not supposed to be able to weigh anybody. Like, there are literally cards you can hand your nurse or your doctor that says, only weigh me if it's absolutely medically necessary, uh, so that I can prepare myself for it. Really? Forgive me for being crass, but that's like going to the gynecologist and saying, only look at my cooter if you have to. Height, weight, blood pressure, temperature are all things that need to be examined on any medical exam. So that's kind of where I've drawn the line and why I wanted to take kind of a deep dive into this. There was a need for it at one time, but now it's just gone totally out of limits. Check it out over on TikTok, Fat Acceptance TikTok. It's just cringeworthy. And if you lose weight, you're fat phobic. If you post a before and after picture, you're fat phobic. I have been attacked on multiple occasions online by fat acceptance people that don't like the fact I talk about my weight loss journey, that don't like the fact I make videos like this, don't like the fact that I've collaborated with such fitness professionals as Alan Roberts, who literally says it's not healthy to be obese, and he speaks the truth. I have I I've interviewed documentarians that have made fat acceptance documentaries. I've been subjected to hate for that. So this is the one, like, if you want to call it social justice movement, that I've been targeted by many times, and they're going to hate me for this too. But I just felt I had to tell you where all this madness came from, prompted by a very unflattering Abercrombie and Fitch ad. It's criminal, y'all. It's criminal. And with that, I will be back very soon with another true crime and history video. And until then, you don't cry.